we'll get started. I sent out an itinerary this morning, so we'll follow that. Just wait till Troy joins us. So we haven't got any representation yet from Mid-Coast New South Wales. Hopefully they'll jump on I'll just watch. Just so you know, I'm recording so that this will go into a bank of recordings, and that if you miss meetings, it's not a problem. Great if you can come, but I understand that sometimes that's not possible. So just to start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and internationally, and recognise their continuing connection to country, culture, community, land, sea and sky, and learning. And I wish to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So what we're going to do today, it's really just our first meeting. Firstly, I'm just going to talk about the Community Connect, what this group is. Here is Olivia. Olivia belongs to Gail's group. I'll get everyone to introduce themselves in a minute. So just want to let her jump in. Hi, Olivia. We're just starting and we haven't done any introductions yet, so it's all good. I'm just about to talk about what this group is. Now we've established a number of Community Connector sites across Australia. The Attract Connect Stay team believed we were ready to develop a network to help you community connectors improve their attraction, recruitment and connection strategies and stay in line with the evidence base. That's one. And there's a separate group, Hands Up Community Connectors. So people who they don't know whether, sometimes people are wearing double hats. So they're community connectors, as well as the working groups or committees, and they look different and the governance structures look different in every site. In fact, that's probably the key learning today, that you'll learn that they all look really different. And that's really about strengthening your governance and sustainability strategies, in particular financial sustainability, the medium to long term. So showing you what we think is best practice and models that are emerging, as well as seeing how what others are doing. This is really an environment to copy what you think is good and avoid some of the challenges, but we want to talk about successes and challenges quite a bit in this group. So pretty informal. All of you have worked with me at some level. You know that I'm pretty straight shooting and I like us to have good dialogue. I've sent you an invitation today for a Facebook group. It's a closed Facebook group, and that'll be our main way of communicating and where I post up things as well. There's a mirror, this strategy for all the community protectors know. So it's the two groups. Go, ladies, don't. So you've got one for your community connectors, BIM Rutherford will manage, and we've got the one for this one. Okay. So it runs from February to November. Then we have a monthly webinar. Based on many of the things that you say today, I'll then work on an outline and program for the next wee while and include guest speakers if I think that might be really valuable, depending on what successes and challenges you're telling me you're having and what I think might be best for the whole group. And we meet on the last Tuesday of the month, and the community connectors meet on the first Tuesday of the month at different times, and some of you are in different time zones as well, but hopefully that'll end soon, Olivia, and we can all be in one time zone for the time being. So moving on from that, what I'd like to do is I'd like you to introduce BIM. Now, I've never had any luck playing a video in my entire life with Zoom, but let's see how I go. But it's also in your calendar. It's up on the Attract Connect Stay YouTube channel. So if I have no luck, you could all go off and grab it off your calendar and watch it. So let's see how I go. I'm just going to chuck it in chat and see. All right. Okay. Yep.
It links there, Cath, but it says it's private.
Yep, just bear with me. And share screen, and let's see. Okay, give me thumbs up if you can hear her.
Hang on, haven't heard it yet.
No, can't hear.
Nope, that's not the right one.
Yep.
That's Glen Innes. So just stop share for a minute. Okay. Okay. Can you see her on the screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see if we can hear her on the screen. So there we go. Okay. All right. So I'll send that to you separately. That doesn't surprise me. Never had any luck. Don't know what it is. So that's BIM. So BIM Rutherford is the ex-community connector for the Greater Shepparton area, and she's come to join the Attract Connect Day team. She came on about last September. Some sites have been working individually with her, and now she's helping the whole group. She's the facilitator for the group of community connectors, and she's also about to support them with the establishment of a customer relations management system that we've had designed especially for this program, and she'll help train and support those community connectors to move over any data that they have. So for people like Karen, who have been doing it for a while, that will be some work. So hopefully you've all been using a very similar spreadsheet. So we've had that in mind. So that will allow us to consolidate your data and see what sort of impact we're having Australia-wide, but also give your committees of management and any potential funders good data on what sort of numbers you're getting and what sort of impact you're having. So it should be very useful for you too. And I'll send you that separately so you can have a moment with them. What I'd like now to do is just to quickly go around the group. Just introduce yourself, your name, your organisation, and which community connected group you're connected with. So I'll start with Gail.
Mute. There we are. Gail, I'm in Bundaberg. Kids is our business name, and Welcome to Bundaberg is our community connector project.
Okay, and Olivia? No audio. That's all right. We'll come back to Olivia. Troy, you're next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm the People and Culture Manager at Western District Health Service in Hamilton, Victoria. And we've been on the formerly RIF now ACS program since about April 2022. And we've had Carly on board as our community connector, Southern Grampians Community Connector, since about June last year.
Okay, and Carly?
Hello. As Troy just said, I'm the Southern Grampians Community Connector.
Okay, and Olivia, have you got sound now? No. Okay, we'll come back to Olivia. Karen.
Hi, my name's Karen Munster and I'm the Health Workforce Recruiter Connector for Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes.
Okay, and Joe.
Yes, hi. My name's Joe Enoch. I'm the chair for Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes Incorporated. That's me.
Okay, and we're missing today the Mid Coast, New South Wales, and they run a strategy called AH202, which is Allied Health in the Mid Coast. That's been around in terms of its collaboration for about as long as Glen Innes has, but they only got operational last year. They're a very interesting group, and I might get them to record a presentation, and I'll send that through to you so you can listen to what's happening in that space. Their community connector came on aboard pretty much about the same time that Carly did last year, so about August or September. So again, a different model from everyone else's. So now what I'd like to do, thank you everyone for that, is I'm going to invite one of us, and I'm sure you've discussed which one of you. So what I would like you to do is to talk about how your program emerged. You've got 10 minutes each, and I'll stop you at the 10-minute mark if you go over. How your project emerged, what governance structures you're using, how you're doing with financial sustainability, what successes you've had, and what challenges. Can I ask people to mute if they're not on? Oh, sorry, Olivia, did you want to, are you, try now? No. Okay, how's your sign language, Olivia? Or you could, Sarah, I think it's your headset. All right, so yeah, it's something to do with your headset. Okay, who would like, so there is a reason why we're going to start this order because of people's need to leave. So Joe, I believe you're speaking on behalf of Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yep. It'll have to be quite brief because, as I mentioned, I have to get to work.
Karen could take over because Karen's been around for a very long time. Okay.
Yeah, she has. Okay, how it merged, probably Karen can handle that one. The governance, she probably handle that one as well. The finances, I'm pretty confident doing that. We have enough funding to be able to employ Karen for the next 6 months, which I'm really happy about. We work very, very hard on other fundraising opportunities. So most recently we did a fundraiser to raise some money for administration, and that was through an art auction. And then we had the raffle of a quilt. And then we've got a big fundraiser coming up on the 23rd of March, which incorporates Can Assist and ourselves as a joint venture, trying to spread our profiles by giving a joint presentation. And in terms of strategy, I'm just grab every opportunity I can to speak about Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes. And the other night we had the other week we had Channel 7 contacting me and asking if we'd be interested in an interview to talk about Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes, which both Karen and I did, which was terrific. And then I was on radio at 9 o'clock this morning talking to a community about what's going to be happening in the future, including our recent development, which is very recent, about the primary health network, community consultation with some funding that they have available. And they're looking at one model of care, and we're certainly looking at how we can retain our level of interest and how retain our independence from PHN. So it's working out a way that we can work together pretty much. There's probably a lot more, but I'll get Karen to speak to that a bit further. Can't hear.
No, I unmuted.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. So yes, so the origins of Attract Connect Stay Glen Innes was Cath pitched to us, to the Glen Innes community in June of 2021, and our community subsequently put in the expression of interest and were successful as being adopted as one of Cath's pilot sites. We then formed a steering committee of 4 local people, myself included, and we did a lot of the research, talking to the different professionals in health services, created the constitution and looked into the governance structure. And so we're a not-for-profit incorporated association, and we are basically funded by, we've got to get our own funding. So either at the moment, from membership, from community members and businesses, donations and fundraisers, like Joe was describing. And then we've also applied and successfully got some funding over the last 18 months because basically, I'm jumping around a bit, but we elected our first governance committee in January 2022. And then by June 2022, the committee had enough money in the kitty to be able to call for expressions of interest for the health workforce recruiter role. I'd stepped back from the committee and any sort of involvement in that time, so that I could apply. And I applied and started in the role in July, at the end of July 2022. So we've had lots and lots of challenges. I think, probably one of them that I see is that it's been over the time, the skill level and experience of our committee members, which have changed completely since January 2022 for all sorts of reasons. So I think everyone that's been on the committee has got their heart in the right place, but sometimes they haven't had a lot of experience in committee roles. and certainly not a lot of experience in establishing an organisation. So when further challenges came along, such as life-threatening illness in our chairperson, there wasn't really any succession planning or job descriptions or policies or procedures to help with the incoming committee members to take on board. So and wonderful Cath and Sam, our vice chairperson, all had a huge ask to take on board, just to first of all understand the model and what was involved, and then to have to try and address all the problems we were experiencing. And yeah, so that's been a really big challenge. And now we're looking at our sustainability, because that's been the biggest problem. My role is that in March, they had enough money to offer me a 6-month contract at 20 hours a week from July, but by July 2022, by March of last year, the committee didn't have enough money to continue at 20 hours a week, and so I was cut down to 10 hours a week and almost closed by the end of June. But thankfully we got new committee members and were able to keep grinding along, but yeah, at 10 hours a week, which was very challenging for me. And I ended up having to take 3 months leave in October because I was worried that the funding was going to run out, and also other reasons. But meanwhile, the new committee members, Jo, our chairperson, and Cath, our treasurer, and Sam, our vice chair, and varying secretaries, were able to gather more funding. And yeah, so I guess I see our biggest success to date is that we're still here and we're still going. Yeah. And yeah, I think, and that's really important, because the health workforce recruiter role, I think, is going really well. But I and the organisation almost wasn't here a couple of times last year. Yeah. Oh, can't hear
Sorry.
you.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Jo. I'm just going to stop there and talk about where Glen Innes sits on a continuum. Do you want to mute Karen and Jo, please? I would say that on a continuum, the things you need to know about Glen Innes is that was the primary pilot site for the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal. So when we were the piloting of the marathon model, and it's very community based, and so you can see by the governance structure it's chosen. Sorry, Jo, could you mute, please? It's coming back in my ears.
Yeah, I can't work out how to do it. Sorry.
And so it's a very community-led model, and there are challenges that Jo and Karen have identified since then. I've just rewritten the establishing the Community Connector program, and no longer recommend. I believe that it's best to find an existing organisation to put this program under. So that is now the recommendation of the Attract, Connect, Stay program. And I list out the types of organisations you'd be looking for, which are business chambers, maybe council. They could be the primary health networks, depending on the primary health network. It could be anything really, providing it's not for profit and its values aligned. But you can see the length of time that it took. It took a good 12 months for them to become operational, and there was 6 months of governance stuff, but that they've continued and so that primary way of raising funds rather than through fundraising and some grants is much more challenging than having members fee for service or some combination of that. So there's much to learn from Glen Innes. It doesn't make the model wrong. It just means I think it sits out here. If I spoke to, and we might present the Southern Grampians one now, that's got the opposite problems, and it's all business and not community. So there's no right or wrong, and nobody's to feel bad by this. They've just all got different challenges, and we're learning all along the way. And that's why, in particular, I wanted to establish this network and bring back in Glen Innes because of that issue that Karen spoke about. When you have turnover, you can very quickly stop being evidence-based and start just doing something that sounds it's deceptively simple, the program, but you can get it quite. And Olivia, you saw something recently that was like it, but not really. And so that's the sort of thing we're trying to get you in the family, and that you can always ask, and who's doing that really well? Where do we think there are challenges? And so you can avoid making or having the same sort of tough experiences. So it's been hard for Glen, and it's very hard, and Karen's held that. And very minor hours too, 10 hours. I think, I've rewritten the program, and I'm saying no less than 20 hours, I think. This can't do the job, and ideally full-time. Enough work in it for full time, but you've got to start somewhere with where your funding is, and it's better to start than not start at all. Okey-doke. So that's me having a little moment. I'm going to mute now and hand over to Troy and Carly, and you can double hand how you'd like. So perhaps Troy, you'd like to talk about how the program was established and why we're doing and how we're doing it in Grampians and the challenges, mainly challenges with that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll try to provide a little bit of background and introduction, and I think Carly can pick up and probably express more about her experiences in the role. But I commenced here at Southern District Health Service back in November of 2021. My chief executive at the time was very keen to get a mechanism in place to assist us with our recruitment. So healthcare workers, 3.5 hours out of Melbourne, are not very easy to come by. So nurses, allied health particularly. Doctors, we have a rotational situation with a couple of more metro-based hospitals, but we do struggle to attract and keep employees from out of region particularly. So I did come from Melbourne myself. My wife grew up here, moved away, now we're back together. So that's an easy land for me, but I do have an appreciation of what it's like for people to come from out of region into a country town, and can only imagine what it's like if you come in knowing absolutely nobody. So I have very strong appreciation. My chief executive sponsored the Cath's program, which at the time was the Whole of Person Retention Improvement Framework, now Track Next Stay. And there were some interesting conversations between Cath and my former chief executive that shall remain confidential for the moment. Anyway, so we got on board. We've actually started with all our recruitment processes, put all those in place, always being mindful that we would need a community connector. We went to our local council to see if they would be interested or try to get them on board in to help fund a community connector position. And we went through a couple of different meetings with different people, including the chief executive at council, and unfortunately didn't get any traction whatsoever. My former chief executive got a bit frustrated and decided that he's going to seed fund 20 hour a week for 12 months for our community connector. And we got Carly on board as a contractor to fulfil those sorts of duties. We've had a lot of work for Carly just from one organisation. I didn't mention that WDHS is something like 900 plus employees. So we're the biggest employer in the district. We have an LGA of something like 16,000 people as population, 10,000 of which live in and around Hamilton Township. Hamilton does provide a lot of really nice infrastructure and certainly a lot of benefits for people moving here from out of region. There's also a couple of little sticky points which have been quite challenging, and surprisingly they have been particularly around childcare and around the availability of housing. One of the things that we have also now introduced, particularly for international recruits, and this is something that's slightly nearly derailed the whole intention and purpose of the Community Connector. So we've not gone just out of region, we've gone out of country to get people in, and some expectations of some of our arrivals has been interesting. But in the meantime, we've implemented a program where the nurses who come in from international sources, we provide 8 weeks of accommodation on us, and in that 8 weeks, we require or hope that they would source their own accommodation once they've landed. So this gives the new recruits the comfort of knowing that they can hit town, with somewhere to lay their heads, and then got a little bit of time up their sleeves to organise themselves once they're here. Big enough shift as it is, and I've seen differences from 2 bags to 16 bags come in with international recruits, and again, the 3.5-hour drive to pick them up from the airport, which I did on at least 3 or 4 occasions. I no longer do, so we get somebody else to pick them up now as well. But that's our background. We have been a little bit frustrated in the interest of our local council. Our council, I understand, is the second biggest employer in town. And yeah, we're just absolutely gobsmacked. They've got a couple of little mechanisms they have in place, and they think that's enough, and it doesn't even scratch what we're finding our region recruits are needing. So I'll pull up there and maybe hand over to Carly, and Carly can give a little bit of a story about her journey and what her challenges and exciting moments have been.
Thanks, Troy. Yeah, that was very thorough. I won't try and repeat much, but I guess at the moment for us, our focus is trying to grow the program so that we can try and incorporate more businesses and more of a network so that we are supporting the whole town and not just WDHS, which is a massive challenge. Wearing marketing role, the sales role, and at the same time doing your community connector role with your new to region employees. So I think all of those things make it feel quite, as I'm sure everyone on this call knows, there's just so many hats to wear. It is part and parcel of the role itself. But yes, I think it's an exciting time, and we're hoping that we will be able to at least form a committee of support for the program, and that will hopefully organically lead to other businesses wanting to buy into it as well. And yes, I guess for us, as Troy touched on, we at the moment, majority of our new arrivals are internationals, which I guess probably the biggest challenge is the time required for them is tenfold on a domestic move. And they're also a lot more rabbit in the headlights and harder to make sure that they are feeling like they're settling and they are part of the community. I guess that's probably been quite challenging. When a domestic comes up as a referral, I'm like, yes, just because it's just always a lot more straightforward and less, they're just a lot, don't need to get a bank account, they don't need to get a car usually, and often they've already started looking for housing anyway because they know that they're currently in Bundaberg, but they're going to be living in Hamilton, and they know realestate.com.au and they know some of those things. So when you've got people coming who often arrive and don't even know what season they're arriving into, and it's cold, and is it always cold? And it's some of those things can be, and even the captain's table dinner, which I know is a really important part of the program. It's been challenging for me because a large cohort being internationals, culturally, they don't do that. They don't go out for a drink on a Friday night. So suddenly it feels you've got quite a small group of people, even though you've got a large one. So one of the things I'm looking at is, how do I tap into that? Do I need to tap into that because they have also formed their own community? Is it required for those people? Just a lot of those questions that you've got to remain open and curious about, because nothing's really black and white, is it? It's very grey. Yes.
And Carly, can you just quickly talk about how many you've settled and the sort of results you've been getting?
Yes, so I've got currently 22 on my books, 13 international and 9 are domestic. 2 of those 22 arrive not next week, but the week after. And yes, they're both internationals. What was the other thing you asked me, Cath?
And so your success with housing, partner employment.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
So everyone is housed, other than bar the 3 latest, so the 2 that are yet to, and there's 1 that arrived a couple of months ago. So they're currently staying on in their WDHS accommodation. I've had a couple of hopeful bites, but unfortunately nothing yet. I have got a house that I'm hoping will work out for them in the next couple of weeks. I always feel like it's such a mountain to climb with the housing, but somehow, and I do put it out there, It sounds a bit woo, but I put it out there, and I do get these calls from people saying, my name's Michael, and I've got a house that I want to rent, but I only want it to be people from WHS. I hear you. It's like, okay, yes, amazing. Yes, I've got a family. They're ready to go. So these things do happen, which I find really, it makes me remain very hopeful, and I can pass that hope on to people as well. Luckily, I think one of the big nets is that WHS do provide that accommodation, that initial arrival accommodation, which is massively helpful. And I have thought to myself, if I was working for another business that didn't have that, that would be very stressful to try and find that landing pad for people, because that 8 weeks is definitely needed. I've only had probably out of everyone, maybe 4 off the top of my head that I've been able to house prior to the end of that 8-week period. Everyone else, it's really been that 8 weeks or just beyond. Yeah, that is something I have been mindful of. We're very lucky that WHS have that in place. Yeah.
Thanks, Carly. So again, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I've muted, hello. So we're certainly not doing best practice in the Southern Grampians. When we got to the point that we were struggling with community collaboration, and partly because we didn't have a community connector on the ground as well, the CEO of Western District Health Service decided to fund it. Now, that means it is way behind on community collaboration, and that essential pillar to really get it embedded in the community. And it continues to be a struggle. We're now 6 months in, and we are the Brains Trust, the 3 of us, on trying to get that happening. And I said today, maybe there's something wrong with Hamilton, but I don't think so. I think it's reflective of community development, and we've put the cart before the horse. I think what you'll also find really interesting about Western District, or this model in the Southern Grampians, as we call it, is if you've got a public health service involved, how it will take quite a bit of time to get the policies and procedures right and the referral pathway. Lots of, sorry, Troy, very bureaucratic public health, and it's taken a little bit of time to get that running smoothly. And it's great to have a very strong relationship with people in culture they're seeing all the people coming through, so they can make referrals, but way trickier than I think. And I know that this was also the case in Shepparton. So next time I'll bring BIM on as well, and she can talk about Shepparton. So Shepparton also had a lot of overseas recruitment, and had to deal with the issue of culture and the appropriateness of this program for people from different cultures, and what BIM did around that as well. So the theory underlying the Community Connector program remains valid regardless of your culture, but how we deliver it might need to be different. Certainly, I know that I've got evidence around drinking and events at pubs and things is not appropriate for many groups. So thank you, Harley and Troy. And now I'm going to hand to Gail. And Olivia, can we hear you at all?
Let's give it another go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can. So I'll get Gail to talk, and then you can talk about what you're doing. Just so you know, Olivia's from a primary health network, so a very interesting partner that I helped align Gail with and Olivia, because there's many synergies. So this is when sometimes the alliance can be really positive. Karen, here's a really positive PHN relationship, and sometimes they can be different from that. Council can be great, and council can be not. Handing over to Gail.
Thanks, Cath. Thanks, everyone. Do you mind if I do a prezzo, share my screen? Sorry, I can't hear you, Cath. Was that a yes? Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Let me just make sure I've picked the right window. Hopefully you can see that. We can put it in presenter mode, and I don't need that, I just need that. There we go. Is that okay? Can I get a
it's good.
verbal recognition? Sorry, because I can't see you. I can't see you now.
Yep, it's good.
Great, thanks. Yes, so Welcome to Bundaberg is the project that I am working on, and so that's me. I've been a business owner in Bundaberg for 30 plus years, ranging from small family businesses, not-for-profit, national not-for-profits, and global startups as well. But I've spent most of my career with the health workforce in leadership roles in health and education, primarily in online communities for dentists, but most well known now working in community services for Wide Bay Kids, which I co-founded with my sister 12 years ago, because as new parents in Bundaberg, we found it really difficult to connect with businesses and services in our region. So we wanted to create something that not only helped ourselves but helped other people as well. So Wide Bay Kids is a community-led not-for-profit. We're an incorporated association, so we're governed by a board of directors. And we run a number of different projects and programs through Wide Bay Kids. Essentially, they're all social enterprises, or they're a community group that we either chair or manage. And they all have a common goal, which is to create a positive impact within the Bundaberg region. So that's me and my sister. So we grew up in Bundy and we have a really deep sense of connection here. The problem is not everybody feels that way. A lot of people feel like they're alone, and that's when my enthusiasm for how do we create a more belonging community culture came from. As a local, I have a really deep sense of connection to the people, the places, and the community, but I recognise that not everybody feels that way. So my approach to everything that I do is to come from a community first approach with it's the whole community's responsibility, essentially, to ensure that everybody feels like they belong. So Welcome to Bundaberg really started about 3 years ago for me when I was doing my MBA and doing research around attraction and retention of skilled workers in regional Queensland. I was working then at a dental practice. We were having a really hard time employing dentists. I wanted to make it easier for us. So that's what I studied. And I took an approach of what was community's role. And the three things were really clear when I finished that project were that we need to create a more belonging community culture, we need to have a whole family approach to attraction and retention, and we need to promote social connection. And so while I was doing all of this research and having these own experiences in the business I was working for, I also came across Cath's research because I was citing her work in my research, and particularly the work around the basic social process and the life and career stages that people go through when they are new and move to a region. So it was really good for me at that time to find somebody who researched and dedicated decades of their life to this approach. So that was a really nice kind of transition for us from doing something that was evidence informed to actually practically, well, what does that mean and what are we going to do about it? And then so that's where Welcome to Bundaberg was formulated. So it started for us as a couple of resources for our community. So we were getting inundated with new people moving to our region. We were getting asked lots of questions. So we essentially just needed to create a resource that we could give people so we didn't have to keep repeating ourselves all the time. And so that came in the form of a welcome pack or a bag, which we had advertisers work with us and businesses, local organisations, private businesses, who put stuff in the bag, which we then gave out. We curated the bag depending on what people's needs were. So if they were identified that they were a person moving to the region who had someone in their family with disability, we'd put information in there about that, or if they were a senior, etc., etc. And then we realised we didn't actually have anything in the bag from us, from Wide Bay Kids, from Welcome to Bundaberg. So that's when we created the magazine. So it's a 40-page magazine that essentially helps people transition, not only for the new people, but also for locals. So it goes back to those three goals of creating a more belonging community culture and promoting social connection. That's the purpose of those two things. And then that kind of then steamrolled into, well, we need this resource online. So then we created the website and an app that people can connect with digitally. And this is all funded from local businesses, a little bit of funding from our council through economic development, so we could produce these resources. What we're finding now is, so we have the website, the app, the magazine, the bag, and we're about to release a podcast in May. So it'll be all about what services are in the region and how you can connect with them. Just another format. It'll be an online web series. But what we're finding now is that lots of businesses in the community are using these resources in their onboarding and induction as part of the onboarding of new people, not only for people who are just arrived, but people who've been living here for maybe a year, 2 years, who still aren't embedded into the community. They're using it as a bonus with their employee value propositions. So now we're at this stage where we're wanting to launch our community connector part of what we're doing, and looking at industry and business partners to ensure that we can actually do that. And so we wanted to run a pilot so we could have that proof of concept, so we could have that case study that we can send out to the wider community and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we did, this is the results, now how can you support it? And to be able to learn from Cath and the team and all of you, the frameworks and what's happening across all of those networks. As we're doing that, and as I'm having conversations with Cath, she introduced us to Olivia at PHN, and so then we could actually be a part of this network, and so that we could build that collaborative response. For us, it's about having the right governance in place, making sure that it's a community-based and approach that enhances the whole region, not just a particular sector or an interest from a funding body. And we wanted to ensure that the data we're collecting and the evidence is in line with what future funding is going to look like, so that we can make sure that we amplify the community impact across not only our regions, but other regions as well. While all this is happening, we're also working on lots of other things and lots of other projects that come up. And we were approached by the Bundaberg District Neighbourhood Centre, which is where our office sits here in Bundaberg. And we created this project with them through some funding through Department of Social Services. And so it's a community-centred solution looking at the gaps in allied health services in Bundaberg. And then working together as a group of organisations, both public and private, to work out, well, how can we actually make a dent in what's happening within our allied health workforce, and how can we help reduce wait lists. We have wait lists for allied health for 10, 11 months. And so this project, although not directly related to Attract, Connect, Stay or Welcome to Bundaberg, there's so many synergies that we're seeing and we're finding. And it also allows us to be working on all this body of work that we're finding and be paid for that through this project while we're still building and working on everything else. So that was just serendipity, I suppose. It just happened all at the same time. So that's a really nice synergy for us to keep working towards that. And so at the moment, where we're at is we're working on the CRM, we're setting up our steering committee, we're talking to allied health businesses to run some pilots on the Community Connector part of the program, and obviously participate in this network and develop a funding and governance plan for future and what that looks like and mapping that out. I guess also what we want to get out of this and where we see the future of how all of these things line up is developing a quality outcomes framework, because we want to make sure that we're capturing that evidence to inform that future funding, both public and private, so we can expand that Welcome to Bundaberg Community Connector project. I'm looking at the Skilling Queenslanders for Work Skills traineeships. We've got some discussions later in the week through that. We're looking at the Workforce Connect Fund, which is through DESBET. and essentially are welcome to Bundaberg's sustainable business model. So we can have that approach, which you mentioned before, Cath, of both community-led private business as well as some type of other funding that might all be able to be in one pot and work together. So we haven't run a pilot yet, a project yet. We're still in this phase of developing that part of what we're doing. Yeah. But that's
Thanks, Gail. Just a few minutes. Olivia, do you want to add to that and why the PHN is interested and what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I won't speak for long. Obviously, haven't done really anything to support Gail and all of her amazing things so far, but really we as a PHN, my area is called Healthy Communities, and it is probably a little bit unusual for a PHN to have a director like ours, but the logic really is that obviously access to health services is only one little part of what actually achieves health and well-being, and so our area looks at community-led approaches or community-based approaches to improve health and well-being. And so that sounds pretty broad, but I'm just conscious of time. So basically we're quite new, and my background is also in community development. So I guess I just started looking of what's already working in community-led approaches to health and well-being in our region. How is it working? How can PHNs or how can we support and enable all that? So I guess, and then Cath introduced me to Gail. We're only providing a little bit of support so far in terms of being able to participate in the network and establish the CRM. But I think even in the short time, and I'm in Bundaberg going to meet Gail at 1 o'clock, so that'll be good too. But I think as we work together, more opportunities arise. For example, Gail had some questions about data, and we have a data team. So I can just ask them and get that data and give it back to Gail. And I had a meeting with the CEO of the Wide Bay Health and Hospital Service yesterday, and honestly, she couldn't have mentioned workforce more. And so I started to think about all of the relationships we could potentially broker for Gail, and how would that work? And we have staff on the ground meeting with these allied health providers all the time. How does that work? So I think, our thing is how we support, how we enable, how we can do something that adds value to Gail and Wide Bay kids and what they're doing without ruining it. Which, as we know, and I worked in council the last 10 years, so I completely understand. I think, unfortunately, some of this stuff comes down to who the individuals are in those organisations and how community focused they are, and if they've got a background in community development or not. And it can be really hit and miss.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So just to talk about that model, so that's I think it's really aligned to what's happening in the mid-coast of New South Wales, which is an allied health whole strategy, Gail, and I really will do an introduction there, and I'll send you both the strategies so you can have a look at that. And the Community Connect program is one component of a broader strategy, and they're very quickly moving from, whilst their focus is on allied health, they're actually looking at all skilled workforce pretty quickly, and most of you are. We don't stay with health workforce for very long because you've got to do partner employment and you've got to know all the things anyway. And for Karen, I think it's a real example of how a PHN could be a support rather than an obstacle. How they can, but I hope you can see why I was ready to set up a network to go, you all need to talk to each other. More than you need to talk to me. So what I'm going to do next is I really encourage you. I know that Facebook means it's your individual, but it's your individual, but it's a closed group. So it'll just be us and BIM and myself. And it's just a good way. I'm going to ask the Mid-Coast, or Tari as I call it, to record. We've also got a site in South Australia that's different again, and that site's Regional Development Australia led, and I think that might be really interesting for you to all hear about too. So that all look really different, and you've all got some bits doing well and some bits really struggling, but I think the finances are pretty consistently struggling. For all of you, it's a struggle. So if we can get a united voice, that will help with my politicking around helping the sites. But the CRM is essential to be able to consolidate data and to begin to show impact. It's like we need to all speak from the same song sheet. I'm going to pop up once I've reviewed. I'll pop up the recording, and you can share that with whoever you think should listen to whatever sections, plus a summary of the day's event. I'm also watch that space for topics that I think I'm hearing today once I've had a think and a talk to them about what I think we should do next time. I hope you don't mind it being a little fluid, because I want it to be really responsive to what you're currently facing. We're just about time. Is there anything people want to say just before we end? No. Here we begin. Hopefully we will grow and help solve each other's challenges, and you'll all get to cross-fertilise and make contact, and that's the way to do it, through the Facebook group, so you can reach out and go, that was really, really interesting, can we meet up and have a chat? It'll always have to be virtual or on the phone, because I don't think any of you live close to each other. None of you do, except for when there's coming visiting. So thank you very much. We've begun. And let's hope it's a really fruitful journey. And we have screen after screen of Community Connect sites all looking different and being really place-based, but successful for attracting, recruiting and retaining staff. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks.
See ya.